My favorite film is a romantic drama, Pride and Prejudice. This is a British film that is based on the book of the same name. The book was written by Jane Austen in 1813, and the film was directed by Joe Wright. The stars of the film are Keira Knightley, who was nominated for the Oscars Awards in, uh, for Best Actress in the role of Elizabeth Bennet, and Matthew McFadden in the role of Mr. Darcy. The soundtrack was created by Dario Marianelli and was nominated for the Oscars Awards too. Now I am going to talk about the plot of the film. The plot of Pride and Prejudice is about the Bennet family, composed of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, and their five daughters, Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia. The story takes place in a rural area of England at the beginning of the 19th century. Elizabeth Bennet, the second daughter, is the protagonist of the plot. She is a beautiful, proud, and young woman with a strong personality for her time. Her family called her Lizzie. Lizzie didn't agree with the social conventions of her time, much less in the role of the woman who depends on the man. Her mother, observing the opinions and attitudes of her daughter, considers her a lost case regarding her chance of obtaining a husband. It's important to remember that in England, at the time of the story, the only social role of women was mother and wife, and they didn't have chance of professional ambitions. In addition, if the patriarch of the family died, the wife was left helpless because women had no rights. Then the possessions would pass to the male children, and if there weren't male children, the fortune pays to the closest men to the family. The plot of the novel begins with the arrival of two young, single, and lucky men in the region, Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy. This is Mr. Bingley and this is Mr. Darcy. The mother of the family Bennet see on this arrival an opportunity to solve family problems. Mr. Bingley, a very sober and distinguished man, falls in love with Jane Bennet, the eldest daughter of the family Bennet. Caroline Bingley, who is the sister of Mr. Bingley, it's again the relationship because Jane isn't of the same social class. But contrary to his sister's opinion, Mr. Bingley approaches Jane, but he suddenly disappears from the city, leaving Jane without any explanation. After some events, Mr. Darcy falls in love too with Jane's sister, Elizabeth. But initially, he refused to accept his feelings because Elizabeth isn't of the same social class. Elizabeth considers Mr. Darcy as an arrogant man and considers him a bad person. But she has to accept that she is attracted to him. She feels attracted to him. As we can notice, this relationship is dominated by prejudice, attraction, passion, and anger. A mixture of feelings that completely disagree. Mr. Darcy, however, finally acquires courage and asks for the hand of Elizabeth. But Elizabeth remains firm in her ideals and rejects the proposal because she considers that Mr. Darcy is an arrogant and unscrupulous man. But things change after receiving a letter in which Mr. Darcy explains his attitudes. After the reading, Elizabeth sees Mr. Darcy as a good man. Even she finds out that Mr. Darcy helped her family when her little sister Lydia fled her home with a man. Happily, Mr. Darcy declares his feelings once again and also his marriage request, and Lizzie finally accepts him. The couple will live in Pemberley. This happy ending also is for Jane and Mr. Bingley, because Mr. Bingley returns to the city and explains the reasons why he had to suddenly disappear. The young man begs the forgiveness of his beloved and asks for her hand, and she accepts. And together they will live in Netherfield. Now I am going to give a little analysis about the film and the book too. The history of the film is a critique of the society of the time. This society is governed by economic ambitions and relationships motivated by interest, leaving aside intrinsic aspects of the human being, such as love or the right to choose a partner. The book starts with a sentence. It's an universally recognized truth that a single man in possession of a beautiful fortune needs a wife that he chooses. In the case of the Bennet family, this family consists of a marriage with 5 daughters. There wasn't male children, and there wasn't a male child who inherited family property. And according to the norms of the time, when Mr. Bennet dies, the properties should pass to the closest male to the family. In the Bennet family, the possessions couldn't pass to the wife or the daughters. And this is the main criticism of the film.